So if you want all the numbers combined here, it's going to be over 1 billion views on podcasts and podcast-related social media clips for Trump. Now let's move to Kamala's numbers. Kamala was on 3 podcasts. The Call Her Daddy, if you want to call that a podcast, that was 8 minutes long. Maybe the audio version's different. Maybe there's another version I'm not finding, but I can't find another version. She was on 3 podcasts. I don't know the other 2 off the top of my head. None of the episodes, long-form episodes, reached over 1 million views. The thing that nobody is talking about with this election is how much podcasts influenced this election. And the stats and the data that I will show you are straight facts. This is not an opinion piece. This has nothing to do with my political beliefs. This has everything to do with the numbers. Also, the new media is podcasting. As we can tell by all of the views that I have in front of me and all of the stats that I have in front of me, news media is not even in the conversation. And when we look at Trump versus Kamala, who reached more people during this entire time? I mean, you already know, I don't have to tell you who did that, but the strategy is really is really important here to note. If you want to go to the data, we have, in terms of full podcast episodes, Trump has been on 14. This ranges from PBD podcast to Impulsive to Joe Rogan, and there's 12 or 11 or 12 other shows that he was on. Also, something to note here before we get to Kamala is Trump did full episodes. He did 1, 2, 3 hour episodes. The interview that Kamala did with Call Her Daddy is 8 minutes long. It's not even an interview. 90% of it's cut out. So with Trump, there was no cherry picking, there was no cutting, there was no editing, which definitely helped, at least on the Rogan side, and where he could just sit down for hours and talk. It's not that Kamala can't do this. She can. She just didn't. She decided not to, or they or whoever decided not to have her sit down for hours and talk openly about what she believed in and her policy, etc. So let's get to the numbers now. So first of all, we have 14 podcasts that Trump was on. The total video views that these podcasts reached were 93 million, closing in on 100 million views total. By the way, this is just stats and data. You can quote me if you want. You can go calculate it. I'll link the article that shows all the podcasts he was on. Now, that is full long-form video views. Now let's get to clips. You have podcast clips being distributed by anonymous people, anonymous accounts. But I conservatively am putting the clip views at 500 million, but I'm going to guess that it's probably it's definitely hundreds of millions, maybe even peaking the billions, meaning that Trump was on these podcasts and in these viral TikTok, YouTube shorts, and Instagram clips and seen probably over 1 billion times. Now we have the thing that definitely nobody's going to talk about, which is the audio views, or the audio downloads. Those audio downloads, from my conservative estimate, are going to be between 10 and 20 million. Now, are we reaching the same people in video as audio? Yes and no. There are some people who chose to watch, but then you also have Spotify, so you can watch and listen on Spotify. So if you want all the numbers combined here, it's going to be over 1 billion views on podcasts and podcast-related social media clips for Trump. And that's just the numbers, guys. You can argue with me on it if you want, but that's just the reality. Again, I'm not taking a side here. That's just the numbers. Now let's move to Kamala's numbers. Kamala was on 3 podcasts. The Call Her Daddy, if you want to call that a podcast, that was 8 minutes long. Maybe the audio version's different. Maybe there's another version I'm not finding, but I can't find another version. She was on 3 podcasts. I don't know the other 2 off the top of my head. None of the episodes, long-form episodes, reached over 1 million views. So we have 3 podcasts, none of them reaching over 1 million views. So we have around 1 to 2 million total viewers on all of those 3 combined. I'm going to conservatively give this 500 million clip views, whereas I'm giving Trump Like I said, surpassing probably almost that billion mark. And then we have audio, which I'm giving, which I think is a liberal number here, is around 1 million downloads. But I'd say it's probably much less than that. I'm going to assume, though, that maybe Call Her Daddy does have a 50-50 split. And in that case, we would have about 500 to 700,000 audio downloads. So what does that mean? Well, that means, number one, again, traditional media is over. People don't trust the news for information, let alone the news. They don't even trust the news for the news, which is crazy. But also the numbers reflect this. A very successful Fox, CNN, CBS, CSM, NBC, whatever, conglomerate you want. A successful news show is going to have 600,000, maybe 1 million people tuning in. Joe Rogan's interview with Trump surpassing 40 million views. So it's not even a competition anymore. And listen, Trump won the podcast media. I would say that he won the media because podcasts and YouTube is basically, and social media is the media now. But even if you don't want to put it like that, he won the podcast media. He did 14 long form episodes that then contributed to thousands of clips that then contributed to, in my estimate, probably over 1 billion views. So that's just what happened. There's no political side here. It's just the reality of the situation. And this shows us how podcasts are influencing not only elections, but everything. So I'm not going to make it political, though everybody else will. But I hope you enjoyed these podcast stats. The reality is podcasting does influence elections, and it did here today influence the 2024 presidential election. Thank you so much for tuning into this. My name is Ryan Sullivan from Podcast Principles. We help businesses, business owners, entrepreneurs create profitable podcasts that add more revenue to the bottom line. So if you're interested in that, we also have the links for that below. Thanks so much for tuning in to this emergency episode, and happy podcasting.